Let's consider how we can enrich the meaning of the self. And we know that the self is very divisive, it is very cunning, and it is very calculative, and it gets hurt, and it is a source, it's the architect of inner suffering for itself and also for the rest of the world. So it's a very disruptive kind of energy which seems to be part and parcel of creation. And by the coming of the world teacher Krishnamurti, the self has been put on the pedestal for all to see, and you begin the religious life and the serious part of the human life by studying the self. So that is the general approach of Krishnamurti, and that is the approach I have taken in Amanaska Yoga, to begin with the self. And the question arises whether there is anywhere in the religious literature of the Hindus, and a corresponding question whether there is anywhere in the religious literature of the other religions adequate attention and showcasing the existence of the self in more artistic, mythological and spectacular terms, so that we understand the reality of the self and don't consider it to be a kind of philosophical abstraction. So when we turn to the Hindu Shaivite tradition, we find that there is the figure of the Apasmara purusha. I'll explain the etymology of this Sanskrit term, Apasmara purusha, which for all purposes is actually the self that the Master Krishnamurti is talking about. And we have to understand it. We should not take it to be some mythical concoction or some mythical unreality. It's the most real thing, and it is driving our lives. And if you look at the figure of dancing Nataraja, the bronze statue, then you will find that the right foot of Nataraja, which means the Lord of Dance. Dance means vibratory movement. Vibratory movement of what? Vibratory movement of the entire cosmos. And the right foot of that Supreme Lord is seen to press down on an infant who does not have a beatific face, but the infant seems to have an evil face, and the infant gives the impression that his will is against the will of the divine, and therefore it became mandatory for the divine, as Shiva, or the dancing form of Shiva, Nataraja. Natana means dance, Raja means king. So for Nataraja to quell this demonic energy, it's basically demonic energy, and it has to be held in place, it has to be subdued, and it had to be kind of put in its place, so that that demonic energy will not disrupt the harmony in creation. Now there's a legend which is going along with that, which we can learn later on in the Amanaska Yoga course. But here, the metaphor of the Apasmara Purusha under the right foot of dancing Nataraja, what is it actually? Now, Apa is the prefix, the Sanskrit prefix, and Smarana means to recollect, to be aware of. Now, Apasmara Purusha means the one in whom the recollection, the gathering, the contextual understanding has gone missing. And so because of that, the energy is very demonic. And in Tamil, the name for Apasmara Purusha, there's a Tamil name, Muyalakan is the name. Muyal, the Tamil word Muyal means hare. And you know the fable, the race between the tortoise and the hare. And finally it's the tortoise which wins the race. And harebrained means somebody who is extremely erratic in his thinking, not systematic, not proceeding slowly, but wild in his thinking leaps. And the Apasmara purusha, because he lacks coherence and he lacks a contextual understanding of life, he acts in a very convulsive way. Why convulsive? Because Apasmara is also a word in Ayurveda, and it points to epilepsy and the epileptic seizures, which are very powerful seizures over which we don't have control. And the convulsive activities and the thoughts of the self are very much like that. They are convulsive, they are sporadic, they are erratic, and they are chaotic. And so that's the very nature of the self, what Krishnamurti calls the self. And in Amanaska yoga, you know that we are devoting a great deal of attention in order to understand this energy and to see if through our sustained awareness on this energy, whether this disruptive demonic energy of the Apasmara purusha or the self can be tamed, can be silenced, and can be held in check, so that life will become blissful and sweet once again. Now, Purusha is one who inhabits the city of 9 gates, which is the body. The body has got 9 portals or 9 gates, and Purusha is the spirit. Another name for Purusha is Jivatma, and another name is Ahankara. And the embryonic form of all this is Asmita, mentioned in the Yoga Sutras. So these are more or less like synonyms: Apasmara Purusha, Jivatma, Ahankara, and the self in the English language. And so we need to understand it from the tradition, we need to understand it from the works of the world teacher, and then most importantly, we need to understand it by observation within our own consciousness. So when we have done all the 3 assignments from the tradition, from the master, and then in the laboratory of our own consciousness, then the reality of the self will become so brilliant that we will know that it's not a myth, it's not a concoction, it's true, and this energy is disruptive, and that this energy has to be tamed, otherwise life cannot become beautiful.